You know how everything's a subscription now? Music, movies, even socks. I swear if it...
To continue this ad, please upgrade to Premium Plus Platinum.
What? No. Anyway, Blue Apron...
This is a pay-per-listen ad. Please confirm your billing.
Oh, that's annoying. At least with the new Blue Apron, there's no subscription needed. Get delicious meals delivered without the weekly plan.
Wait, no subscription?
Keep the flavor. Ditch the subscription. Get 20% off your first 2 orders with code APRON20. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Edible arranges effortless joy all year with same-day and next-day delivery or local pickup. Edible makes gifting simple. Fresh arrangements, dessert boards, and big treats for birthdays, thank yous, or just because. Order at edible.com or your local store.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel, Tralee.
Thanks very much to everybody for coming out for Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations live. We've 2 seasons in the can. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on me and it. So my name is Enda Grace. I'm the producer of the podcast. About 2.5 years ago, I was mainly working in television. So we have a television production company called Dundara Television and Media. And Mary Kennedy rang me one day and said to me, "Do you ever consider podcasts?" And I said, no. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't one of those things that I was interested in. And she said, "Well, I was thinking Mary McAleese and I," and I went, "Yeah, I'm now suddenly into podcasts," because it was an absolute no-brainer, I think, to have Ireland's Queen of Broadcasting and former President together in one room with guests. So we met a couple of weeks later in Dublin and we sat down and we talked about what we'd like to do and how we'd like this to work. And after an hour and a half, we knew what our plan was. So it's called the Allenwood Conversations because we record in my home village of Allenwood, which is a little village in County Kildare. In GA terms, it's Johnny Doyle. And we record all of our podcasts there. So I've got a studio in Allenwood, and we bring all of our guests into Allenwood. So we've had a great lineup. We've had Dermot Kennedy and Phil Coulter and Niall Quinn and a brilliant, brilliant lineup of people. And tonight we're going to have 2 more exceptional guests for you. The Meadowlands Hotel here in Tralee have been our sponsor of season 2. And we're hugely grateful because a podcast can't survive without sponsorship. And the Meadowlands came on board and have been absolutely fantastic. We said, look, we'll go down and we'll do a live show for you in Tralee when the time is right. And that time is now. So it's never lost on me when I sit in a room with these 2 ladies what exactly I'm sitting with, because these 2 women, I'm sure you'll agree, are legends. When you come to history, you come to broadcasting, and we have guests, funny enough, that come into our podcasts, and afterwards they say, "We were really nervous." And these are high-profile people who are well used to being on TV. And they walk out of the room, though, and say, "That was actually brilliant." Mary and Mary are exceptional at what they do, and you're going to see that here tonight. So, without further ado, can we raise the roof for Ireland's Queen of Broadcasting? And although we have a guest later on that might dispute it, but we'll let them fight that out. Ladies and gentlemen, Mary Kennedy, and the 8th President of Ireland, Mary McAleese. Yeah. What a lovely welcome. So before we mention Kerry, because I know Kerry is a big part of both your lives, and without kind of getting too serious, Changing Times, the podcast, Mary McAleese, for you, what have you got from the 2 years of doing the podcast? I know we're in a changing world at the minute, and the reason we kind of decided to go Changing Times is because change is constant in people's lives. Everyone goes through change. So for you, what has the podcast meant to you?
Well, first of all, it's a chance to work with Mary. Mary and I have been friends for donkey's years. We go on holidays together every year. And on our holidays, which are usually kind of walking holidays, well, they were until we all got back of the air. We're now we're in free travel area, so we probably just don't do as much walking. But we do these competitions every night, and she is wicked competitive, wild competitive.
What?
Yes, you.
No, you are.
Wild,
You are,
competitive. And we always have great crack. We have brilliant
We
fun.
do quizzes.
So it was just a chance to do something different because we're just mates and podcast. And also we belong to the generation that didn't really grow up with podcasts. We're both broadcasters. Well, Mary, of course, very, very seasoned broadcaster. So it was a chance to do something new. But also I think we both felt that we'd like to do something with people that we liked, who were really good people who invest in our country, who are the kind of people you'd look up to, and that we didn't want to take scalpels to them. You know, we didn't want to bring them into a studio and interrogate them like we were senior counsel, and that they were on trial, you know, for murder. We wanted to make them comfortable and to open up, and that's what and that's the big thing. The number of times people said to us afterwards that it was like being in the psychiatrist's chair, and that they had opened up to things they never expected to. That was lovely, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people said that they spoke about stuff that they never spoke about before.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of those stories, but that was nice.
Yeah,
that they did that.
One of the ones, do you remember we had Phil Coulter? Phil's brilliant.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Phil had, I mean, wonderful musician, obviously, made a small fortune over the years with his genius in music, but he had been a student in the Queen's University of Belfast in the music department. I don't think he darkened the door of it too often, and with the result that he spent 5 years there and left without a degree. And he said, like, in the course of the interview, we're just asking him, what would you have changed in your life? And he's, out of the wide blue yonder, he said he'd love to have been able to go home to his mommy and daddy and say, I got my degree. But he never did. And then suddenly he got very emotional about it. And I was really taken aback because when I was working in Queen's, one of the things that I did, knowing how kind of stiff and formal the music department was, I made sure that he got an honorary degree. And I thought, well, maybe that might take the sting out of it. And I was shocked whenever I discovered that he was still upset about it. So on the way home, I phoned the university and I said to them, any chance this fella could get his actual degree? And he did. And he did. And he was, but I rang him to say it's sorted. And he just said, I'm pulling into the side of the road. And he just started to cry. Yeah. I mean, this is a man in his 80s who's top of his game, utterly, you know, like legions of genius, and still lurking inside of him that sense that maybe he'd let his mummy and daddy down, you know? So it was lovely.
Yeah, and things like that come out through various stories.
And if you could do something about it, you would.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Mary Kennedy, for the podcast for you then, I know it's, as we say, it's a relatively new forum. You contacted me about it. It came through you. So what has it meant to you?
Well, what I particularly like about the podcast is the fact that it's not recorded in Dublin. I love the fact that it's out, as they say, in the regions, and it's in Allenwood and in your studio. And it's a very convivial atmosphere because, as Mary said, we're not talking to people and wanting to get the better of them. We're wanting to get the best of them and to put them in a good light. So I think that matters very, very much to me. And nobody has had any problem with travelling to Allenwood. You know, we've had people like Phil, who came from Wicklow, because he lives in Wicklow, doesn't he? Bertie Ahern came out. We've had Daniel O'Donnell, and he sang. Those kinds of things are very, very special. I suppose for me, and I'm just looking out there at Anthony O'Gara and Duna and Don O'Neill and Pascal, and I know that Roger Harty wasn't able to come, but his wife Breed and her friend are here. Being back in Tralee is very special to me because, I mean, I was 100 years, was I? Judging the Rose, and it was every year was very serious and also very, very special. And the last year that the last 2 years that I judged, we were here in the Meadowlands, and it was funny because we were having a conversation in the library just after we arrived, and when Mary came in and sat down, the first thing I said to her, because that's where we used to hold the interviews for the potential roses, and she sat down and I said to her, so what do you think makes you a good candidate for the international?
And what's the answer, Mary?
but then you asked me, was there any age that I would prefer to have been than this? And I said, yes, 18 again.
18, so you could have entered, because the age limit has gone up.
So, Kerry, you've alluded to it there briefly. We'll touch on it before we bring in our first guest. But Kerry means a great deal to both of you, I know. So, Mary Kennedy, you continue on there and tell me, because you mentioned Tralee and coming down for the roads of Tralee, but it's more than that to you.
It's much more than that. This is where I learnt my Irish, out in, well, first of all in Carrick, in the shoppa across the road from the church. That was the first place I went. When I was in fifth year in school, our teacher, who was very visionary, Mrs. Redmond, she was from Tarbert. She just took people that she thought might have, a gra for Gaeilge, and she organised for us to stay in this house with the O'Crohurs. And that was, I just fell in love with the place. There were about five of us, I think, all from Clondalkin. And just for me, it was just something really, really special. I still have memories of walking down the roads and, the fuchsia bushes, and it was nothing. Like, I grew up on a housing estate in Clondalkin. And then when I was studying Irish in UCD, every Easter I would come down to Muriach and Ballinanowl and Ballinarterig and places like that. And I just love, as a friend of mine says, I love the bones of you. I love the bones of it. I love every part of it. And I have a friend now, and I will never fall out with her because she has a holiday home in Clahan.
She's your best pal, is she?
And I love coming down there as well. But there's just something about it. It's a very easygoing place. The people are very easygoing. They've got a great sense of humour. And like myself and Mary, they don't take themselves too seriously.
Well, I produced a series called Moving West at Mary, for TG Carrot at Mary Kennedy Presents, and we were down in that neck of the woods for our first season. And when you arrived there, you could see that you were absolutely at home.
Loved it.
And loved it, but it was great. Mary McAleese, your connections to Kerry are family connections.
Strong. Yeah, but actually, Martin and I are married. He's down here somewhere. Where is he hiding? He's hiding there somewhere. There he is, down the back there somewhere. But anyway, we're married 50 years next month, and I'm a martyr. And so anyway, but we came to Kerry on our honeymoon, and which was wonderful because Martin worked at that time for Aer Lingus, and we could have gone free, gratis, and for nothing to anywhere in the world that they went, but they didn't come to Kerry. So, but we did, and we came to Kerry on our honeymoon, and it was very healing because on the morning of our wedding was a complete and utter disaster, unfortunately, because on the morning of our wedding, 2 of our guests were murdered in a sectarian murder. So if you want your wedding ruined, that was the way. So when we arrived, we were very, I would say, raw and wounded, and we weren't in the space that you would want to be on your honeymoon, can I put it that way? So Kerry was so healing for us. And so it stayed that way. It's always been the place that you come to for healing, and the graciousness. People are so gracious, and the place is so beautiful, and it just reminds you of the great wonders of divinity and of goodness and human kindness. So that was wonderful. But then when I first met Martin, he was the captain of the Antrim minor football team. God, he thought he was great. I thought he was great too, actually. But anyway. But then in Queen's, he won a Sigerson medal and a McKenna Cup medal. And he jealously guarded these for whenever our children were born, he was going to regale them with stories of his daring do on the football pitch and explain to them that he got a bad knee injury, which really interrupted his senior career and really stopped Antrim from ever getting an All-Ireland football medal in Croke Park. And so he had it all sorted. And then one day, our eldest daughter, Emma, walked into our kitchen with a big, tall Kerry man. And who was his daddy? Mick O'Connell. And Martin, who's very gracious normally to people, his face dropped. And under his breath, all I could hear was him saying, bastard. So that's how it's been ever since. So we're very lucky. We share 2 gorgeous little grandsons with Mick and God rest Rosaleen O'Connell. And so that has brought us, of course, to Kerry, to Valentia Island, to Kerry, to Killarney, to Tralee. I love to walk Bannistrand. I have a great old friend here. I owe him a walk, Pat McCarthy. So everything about Kerry. There's something so formidably Irish about being in Kerry. You feel that you have almost gone down into a vortex where you've been introduced to everything that is real and good about us as a people, and also everything that is beautiful about Ireland. So yeah, it's our place, and of course, except when Down is, if on the rare occasions when Down appears in Croke Park, we're up for Kerry. We live in Roscommon. Might support the Odd Armagh team, or dare I mention Tyrone?
Ooh, that didn't go down too well.
Yep.
Or
So,
even, Mary, would you support the Dubs on the odd day?
Are you completely insane?
Well, you have a place in Dublin as well.
Not a chance. Not a mission. And
Anybody
that's-
outside Dublin, Mary, it doesn't happen.
That's the big worry. Our two grandsons that we share with Mick are born in Dublin, and that nearly killed the two of us. The idea that we might actually have grandsons who were Dubs. This was...
They might end up on the
Anyway, we
Dublin
needn't
team.
worry. They are Kerry to the hilt. And if you even hinted to them that the fact that they were born in Dublin would confer on them a loyalty to Dublin, well, they would combust with anger. So that's grand. Now we've got that sorted. Sorry to any Dubs who are present, including...
Are there any
Yeah,
Dubs
there's a
present?
Dub
I
down
see
there.
one waving
there's
down
one
there.
down
Very brave
there's a few
person.
Dubs present.
Hands up the Dubs.
one or two.
Well,
Few Dubs.
there's a
About
few.
5. Oh no, there's some over
No.
here as well.
No,
Well-
we admired the footballing prowess, but we're like the other, 31 counties.
ABDs.
Yeah.
ABDs. I think people might be interested maybe to find out your favourite moments of your careers, your incredible careers.
You compare prices when shopping for flights, hotels, cars. So why not small business insurance? At Simply Business, we'll show you policies that fit your business and a range of prices to help you save. Who knew buying insurance could be so simple? Visit simplybusiness.com for your free quote today.
So, Mary McAleese, we're going to take your presidency. Is there a standout moment in your presidency?
Very definitely. Standing in Croke Park on the night of the opening of the World Special Olympics Summer Games. Magic. Absolutely magic. That was inclusion, and that was, I think, the Irish people then who responded to that. First time those games had ever come out of America, and we needed to have an army of like 40,000 volunteers. We had to raise 60 million. And these were the Celtic Tiger years when everybody was saying that we'd all kind of run away with ourselves and that we were all becoming kind of greedy and selfish and all that stuff. And then the Irish people just came out of every corner and embraced all those lovely athletes that came from all over the world. Some of them came without a shoe on their foot, but they left with bags of stuff that were given to them, lovingly given to them. They left with memories of great hospitality. And what I loved at the end of it was, if you remember, this was a lovely story at the end where they were going back and a bunch of them were at the airport. One guy had 3 gold medals round his neck. And beside him, there was a girl going to a different country altogether, and she had 2 bronze and a silver. And she looked at him longingly, and she said to him she would love to have had a gold. And he took off one of his medals and gave it to her. And he said, now you've got the full set. That's, that to me, that was just so, that's the kind of world you want to live in, isn't it? Where people have that goodness. But I thought Ireland showcased, in a way, a very deep way, what we're made of as people.
That's fascinating because, I mean, the moments you've had huge moments, like, welcoming Queen Elizabeth to Ireland was one of them. The Good Friday Agreement, all of those various times. And it's just fascinating that's your standout. And I think that's really nice.
By a mile.
Very good. So, Mary Kennedy, your illustrious career has brought you across Europe and across the world with broadcasting and Ireland and up and down the country with Nationwide. What's your standout moment of your career? It's the Rose of Tralee. It must
I'm
be.
looking at Anthony O'Gara and say, Rose of Tralee, of course.
Absolutely.
No, there were many, I mean, Nationwide was just an absolute joy for me because I just love everything we have in this country. I feel very, very proud and very privileged to have been born in Ireland and to be a part of our culture, our Celtic, our Christian, all of that amalgam of pieces that make up our DNA, our language, our song, our dance, our kind of sense of conversation, all of these things, and our compassion and the way that we innately treat people. Anywhere you go in the world, if you see people who are in need, you will find Irish people looking after them, and that's very special to me. But then I suppose, like, as a highlight point, well, there were two. One is the funeral of Mother Teresa, and that was my first time in the developing world doing the commentary for the funeral of Mother Teresa with our recently deceased good friend Dermot McCarthy. But the Eurovision, of course, was really, really special.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eurovision presenter. I mean, you don't get much bigger than that.
No, well, I mean, it was wonderful. I was fascinated by the Eurovision since Dana won.
Yeah.
And I was watching it. It was broadcast. The Irish, it was in the Netherlands, but the Irish commentary was from the Gaiety. And I was there at home. We were all watching it, and I said, "Oh my God, that's lovely." I said, "I'd love to be part of the Eurovision." I knew it wasn't going to be singing, so I was always fascinated by it. And then when it became possible, when we were on that roll of winning, when Linda Martin won in Sweden and then it came back to Ireland, I auditioned and I didn't get it. In fact, the presenter that year was Fionnuala Sweeney, who was a colleague from the newsroom. And then the next year, Niamh Kavanagh won, so it came back again. And I auditioned and I didn't get it. And that was when Cynthia Wiriku and Jerry Ryan presented. And then Rock and Roll Kids won that year, so it came back again. And I auditioned, and this time I did get it. And my brother to this day says, "Oh my God," they said, "we'll have to give it to her this time or we'll never get rid of her." He says it was out of pity. But it was an absolute thrill, and people say, was it not very daunting? It would be, but you just have to think of people in little groups in their sitting rooms in different parts of the world, I suppose. And I suppose that was pretty special. The opening was absolutely spectacular. There was a wonderful set designer in RT at the time, Alan Farquharson, and he designed it where there was a series of steps, and they were each covered in black silk. And as I would go down the step, the silk would come away and the step would be lit up. And it was very beautiful. But at the dress rehearsal, obviously, all the press were in. And on the Independent the following morning, there was a cartoon of me going down the steps, and then my heel got caught in one of them and then tumbling down. Now, the production team tried to keep it from me, but I saw it at lunchtime. And it really was just a wonderful memory. I do also feel that in order to go down the 13 steps, you had to climb up, obviously, at the back. And it was like the end of A Tale of Two Cities. It really was. It was like I was as if I was up there, ready to go to my death, because all the crew were down at the very bottom saying, "Good luck now, Mary, good luck now, Mary."
Off you go.
But it was great. But certainly the Rose of Tralee, I loved every single minute of being a part of the Rose of Tralee. I still value it hugely. I think it's a very important part of our culture. I hope it never changes. And I have to say that Caitlin Cummins, this year's Rose, is playing a blinder on Dancing with the Stars.
Isn't she something?
It's fantastic. So I think Anthony O'Gara, you must be happy to hear that. Don, you must be happy to hear that. I mean, everybody in Tralee, but the Rose of Tralee is iconic. So speaking of iconic and speaking of broadcasters who are at the absolute top of their game, there's a lady down the back in a sparkly dress. It's showbiz, as she told us earlier on. When I spoke to her on the phone during the week and we're talking about coming to Kerry, she was at pains to point out, I don't have a tenuous connection to Kerry, I am Kerry. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Miriam O'Callaghan.
Hi everybody, thanks Enda.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel, Tralee.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.